Hi guys, this is Rob from RuinWorks. I'm here today bringing you the latest release for October 2023. This is release number 2. It's another part of the Dwarven Ruins of Grunvyr series, and it is called the Gloom Cells. This scene has 4 levels: Gloom Cells 4, 3, 2, and 1. This finally brings us to the very basement of Grunvyr. I think we're now something like 13 levels deep. So the main entrance to the Gloom Cells would be up here in the main entrance shaft. This circular room here winds all the way up to the ground. The scene includes rotating cages down here in room E. On Gloom Cells 3, there's a rotating bridge in room J. There's options to customize some skeletons in some of the rooms. All the doors open and close. There's some overhead tiles for cages, and there is also some traps. So let's get to it. Starting off with room A on Gloom Cells 4, this is again where players would be entering this scene. First thing you're going to come across here is an interaction point on the right wall. Double clicking this will show whoever activates the interaction point a plaque with the words, "Those who trespass Grunvyr's halls deserve their doom, condemned to live out their fate in halls of gloom." Next, you'll see here in front of the first door of the dungeon is a white hashed square. This indicates where there is a pit trap. So I've done this like I did it in the Decrepit Mine, where you can have the trap activated in the margin, and then if you hit deactivate, the hashed area disappears. That's just a cue to let you know if the trap is active or not. So hitting the reset also activates it, and the trap will work similarly as it does in my other scenes, where if a token steps on it, the game pauses, the GM is sent a notification saying that a token stepped on the pit trap. Do you want to activate the trap? If you hit no, nothing happens. And then if you hit yes, you do want to activate the trap, you can hear a sound playing. You can see the image below has now changed, and the GM is sent another notification asking if you want to send the token down the trap. Now if you hit no, again, that means your token or player has probably succeeded on their saving throw and they can stay up here on this level. I'll show you what happens when you hit yes. So yes, you do want to trigger the trap. They fail their saving throw, and they are sent down a chute and down to Gloom Cells 1, room N. So that's how this first trap works. Pretty similar to my other traps. Very easy and intuitive to use. We take our token into the first room. First thing we'll see in the room here is a lever with an interaction point, so players can decide if they want to pull the lever. If they do pull the lever, it activates and deactivates the trap. I thought this might be fun. If you have the trap inactive, when they first enter, they come in, most players are curious, they decide to pull the lever, they don't see anything happening, they might go back out here and step here now. Trap is active, and now they fall down instead. So just a little idea of how you might want to use this. As we go through the dungeon, room B here is just old guard rooms. Room C, upper cells. I will just note that in the top corner of the upper cells here, there is another lever with an interaction point. This interaction point will allow players to control the portcullis on the level below. So if you bring him, it was closed. You bring it close, does he want to put one? Yes. Sound plays, and if you go down to Gloom Cells 3, the image has changed and the door is now open. To pull it again, you'll now see it's closed. Obviously all the doors here open and close and play sounds. Going down a bit further, come to room D, which is just a cistern which would have held water to flush out the sewers in the cells on the lower level. And then down here for room E, there are 2 interaction points here and here, and turning these wheels will control the rotation of these cells. So it might not be clear from this video, but this room does descend down to below elevation 0 to a grading, so it would be a drop of 60 feet probably, depending how you want to roll it. So anyone who was trapped in these hanging cages would not have been able to just jump out easily, and also there's no way to access them. So in order to bring the cages closer, you would have to use these wheels. So if a player decides to double click on one of these, they can say yes, they want to turn the wheel, You'll hear a short sound there. That's because currently the interaction points for the wheels, as you can see in this note here, are currently set to broken. Interaction points are set to broken. Those wheels will not turn. Now, if you set them to working, when you double click on the interaction point and click yes, you can see right here that there's a bit of a sight of a gear turning. So attentive players might notice that, and you also see that the cages themselves have rotated around. Remove this guy's sight, and if he does it now, you can see that the gears in this mechanism are also moving. An idea behind this is that if you have one of these rotating sets of hanging cages set to broken and one to working, they'll be able to rotate some of them. That will rotate this little gear here and give them a clue that there's a mechanism in a secret room or over in this direction somewhere. The idea being that players might want to go into this room, find this room, repair the mechanism as to allow the rest of the cages to be accessed. Just threw that in there just for a bit of reality, and also for been reading up on Pathfinder 2nd edition, and there are classes like the Investigator or Inventor who might be well suited to doing something like this. Also here are skeletons in the cages, and there's another control panel to decide if you want to keep those skeletons. If we remove those overhead tiles, you can see some of these cages have skeletons in them. You can just use these transform buttons below the scene to turn them on and off. There's 4 different skeletons you can decide if you want to keep in the cages. Going down to Gloom Cells 3, we'll go back up to room A here. This grate in the middle of the floor is above the cell trap room from which the pit trap drops players. So if you want to customize this grate, you can just cycle through the different options with the transform button here above the scene. Keep in mind that this grate would also be essentially the bottom of the entrance shaft. So if anybody falls from any of the levels above, the connection scene, the forge halls, the great hall, or the mountain entrance scenes, this is where they would end up. So they might end up landing on this grating, or if you remove it, they might end up in the cell trap far below. Another option is I have provided a grate with a hole in it, so maybe they even burst through this grate if they fall this far. And this is the shaft through which players would fall when the trap activates on the level above. So I showed you that this portcullis was activated by a lever above. That goes for the same here with this portcullis. There's a lever above this stairway to open it. However, they do open just by clicking on the secret door button. This level also has an overhead tile that laps over the entire floor. So if you pull these, you can see that the chains and some torches will appear overhead of players as they're moving through the scene. Down here in room G is the lower cell, so it includes all these dark cells here, as well as these kind of torture chambers and a bit of a torture room here on the far right. Please note that the drawings in rooms G, I, and F will automatically lower tokens from the level above to this level, and also in room A. These are not stairs up, they will just automatically drop players down when they step off a ledge. Moving over to room J, the token can move over to the interaction point, and if they decide to pull the lever, rotates the bridge so that they can now cross over to this isolation cell. If you turn it again, it will close it, and if you notice there's no tile currently here, but as soon as the tile finishes its actions and unpauses the game, that this tile, white hash tile, reappears. So this white hash tile is a levels drop, so anybody stepping on it will automatically descend 2 levels below. The bridge is activated. You can see that this tile disappears, meaning that is no longer active, and players can now walk across without the threat of falling down. Also bridge controls in the left margin. Then there's also a cyclic bridge image in case you want to have a broken bridge. You can also open the bridge and then use this as a trap. Down here in room K, this is the isolation cell. There's a couple of things going on here. One is you have the option to add and remove skeletons from this room. So right now skeleton 1 is showing, so if I click the transform button, he just disappears. There's also skeleton 2 lying in the corner, or skeleton 3 kind of sitting in the corner up here. And then here in the bottom right of room K, there's a secret door. You can hear that sound playing. as I imagine anyone who finds this secret door would actually be pulling the blocks away from the wall to find this old escape tunnel that somebody had dug. On to Gloom Cells 2. These last two levels are a bit smaller. I will note the idea here. I mentioned there was a cistern with the water to flush out the toilets on Gloom Cells 3 to flush these out. And then here in Gloom Cells 2 you can see where the pipes would have exited. That's why the bottom floor is called the refuse halls. On Gloom Cells 2, all we see here is the slide that throws from the trap. We have a lever here, and this lever is set up much like the other ones for the portcullises. It activates the portcullis on Gloom Cells 1 beside room M. The exclamation marks on the stairs just allow players to clearly understand when they're using the stairs going up and down. And then just a small thing over here, if we bring a token, you can open up the cell and a token can walk inside of it, just for a little extra ambiance. Okay, lastly, Gloom Cells number 1. There's 2 portcullises on this level, and the 2 levers here operate each one. See, this player can see the portcullis. If he uses the lever, the door opens and he can now exit. So that brings us to the end of the Gloom Cells. I hope you like it. I think it turned out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. I think there's a lot going on and a lot of cool ways that your players can adventure through this dungeon. Anyways, guys, I think the next release will be Stalactite Bridge scene. That's another Grunvyr scene, kind of on a roll with those right now. And I'll try to put up a Patreon vote for the next scene soon. Bye for now.